Hello and welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about WestWorld Season 2.
Please excuse the additional noise. We will try to edit it out as much as possible afterwards. But it is a 94-degree day here.
Yes.
And our recording computer and studio is up in the attic, so...
It's a little hot in here.
Yeah. We are going to be talking about the entire Season 2, so if you have not yet seen any of Season 2, you may want to go back and watch that on some HBO streaming service somewhere and watch it. Since it's all over now, you can actually go and binge it and then come back and listen to our episode.
Yeah.
So,
we will be referencing Season 1, so if you haven't watched Season 1 for some reason, make sure you watch that too.
And then listen to our podcast for Season 1, and then listen to this podcast after you watch Season 2.
Yes.
So, our review and summary. It's really difficult for us to summarize Season 2, I would say.
There's a lot of stuff that went down.
Yeah, there was a lot that happened. Let's just say... summarizing Season 2 would be after the traumatic events of the Season 1 finale of WestWorld. The park goes madness.
The park goes madness?
Park goes madness.
All right.
In a very real way. Everybody dies, hosts and humans alike. And... there are a few that are left at the end. That's my summary.
Wow, that didn't give us insight to anything.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's very hard to summarize.
All right, my turn. So, end of Season 1, beginning of Season 2 starts right after end of Season 1. Which, after the end of Season 1, we find out there was a time twist, and all of our timeline was all kind of wacky. We go into the season not knowing if there is a time twist or not. And we follow Bernard around, mainly, and then also we still follow...
Dolores and Maeve.
Dolores and Maeve. Maeve is trying to still get with her daughter and escape. Dolores is trying to get revenge on... the humans, and Bernard is wondering what he needs to do.
Okay.
That's a pretty good summary, right?
Yep, there you go, yeah.
Yeah.
It was better than mine.
Yeah, I actually gave some context into, what actually happened.
It turned into madness.
And it turned madness.
Yes. I'm not sure that I liked Season 2 as much as Season 1. I mean, this is it's very Season 2-ish. And I mean, we're going to be doing a lot of Season 2s here in our own Season 2 of Patron Saints of Pop Culture. But I really think it did hit that sophomore slump.
Not as hard as some
Well, yeah,
TV
and
shows.
We're going to we talked about Jessica Jones Season 2, and here's a preview for our... Luke Cage Season 2 it's not going to match up to Season 1. But, I think this one does better than those Season 2s. I think it was a very good Season 2. Didn't quite meet Season 1, but it was still better than some Season 1s of some series. Is my review.
All right. I agree. I feel like Season 1 was definitely better than this time around. It wasn't a bad Season 2. I didn't really expect them to do another, time twist, which I'm kind of... I don't know how far they're going to be able to do it. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that with Season 3, especially since it's going to be something that we already kind of expect.
Well, with the post-credit ending, it already is setting up another timeline.
But one of the enjoyable things about Season 1 was because we didn't realize it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And with Season 2, a lot of us didn't know if they were going to do that again, which they did do that again. And it was pretty clear they were going to do that because there was a lot of time between the opening credit and what happened. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's not as bad as a lot of season 2s, but season 1 was definitely better.
All right. Whereas we talked about in our episode on season 1, we talked about consciousness is really where the season 1 was kind of delving into. I really feel like season 2 was more focused on dehumanization and violence. This is, I think, very, very much using a fish out of water trope to really take a look at humanity and how we do this, how we kind of divide ourselves into tribes. You really see this kind of set up in season 2 with the hosts versus the humans, and how that really plays out. Whereas some of the hosts have not yet gained sentience, but Ford kind of programmed this anti-human kind of virus that spread out throughout the entire host area, which you also have the hosts turning on other hosts. You have this whole kind of chaos that has perpetuated throughout the park.
Yeah, to put it lightly.
And I really think this is part of from season 1's Ford's idea of trauma or suffering, really kind of evolving that sentience, evolving that bicameral mind, where suffering does kind of divide us into of two minds, of two different kind of voices in our head, is a pre and a post traumatic event kind of being. And I think you see this throughout the entire series with both the humans and the hosts, that they're all going through this traumatic event, and you see them kind of both working through it in their own ways. I think the biggest evidence of this, I think you saw in season 1 with Felix and Sylvester, of the traumatic event of having Maeve wake up on them. And then here in season 2, you're seeing how they're kind of gaining their own sentience, their own kind of way out of where they were in the past, where they were just kind of zombies, as it were.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm always going to relate things to zombies because that's who I am.
It's a pretty common theme in a lot of things recently, so it's not your fault.
Well, and I think that because season 1 was planned out and written before, and even filmed before the Trump presidency, I think that we've got this whole traumatic event for us as human beings in the 2016 election in America, where we've got our own bicameral minds of pre-election and post-election beings. And then, I mean, you can see this in humanity. We'll get to that. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have this really kind of interesting take on how we as human beings kind of dehumanize the other.
Yeah.
And throughout the season, you have Dolores dehumanizing the humans, thinking of them as inferior creatures and
animals
and all of this other take throughout the entire season. And you have the humans dehumanizing the hosts because they're robots, and the robots, really they've gained sentience, whereas they're real beings. And I think that this is a wonderful play for the writers to go, since they played with consciousness in the first season. Now they're playing with how would we as human beings interact with another sentient creature,
especially ones that we made.
Exactly, is that we wouldn't treat them very well.
No.
And I think this goes way back to Arthur C. Clarke's phrase. There is either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. And I think this is a great way to go with a sci-fi series. It's a great way to use that fish out of water trope. Again, like I said, it wasn't as good as season 1, in my opinion, but I think this plays very well on that idea. And and especially where we are as a culture. And as we said last week, is that our show is all about finding where these pieces of pop culture are a mirror to our society. Would you say that you picked up some of this from season 2? Like, where did you see some of this?
Like, I mean, everywhere. The fact that, I mean, Dolores had no qualms about killing anybody and everybody who got into her way. In fact, heck, look what she did to Teddy. Like, she took out, like, the sweet part that everybody liked about Teddy, like, what really made Teddy Teddy, and took it out of him, and, like, made Teddy into somebody that she needed, that she wanted.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. I mean, how many people have even taken, like, past historical figures and have rewritten them to, like, fit their own narrative in terms of how they wanted them to really play out.
Oh, Christopher Columbus is kind of like the prime example of that.
Yeah. I was also thinking about the Mongols, too. Genghis Khan, I listened to a podcast about that recently, so that's why it's on my mind. But a lot of people, I mean, when we think of Genghis Khan and the Mongols, like, we think of these barbarians that were just out for war, and they were terrible, and they caused a lot of destruction, which is true. However, there's also another side of his empire that, like, a lot of people just sweep under the rug. The size of his empire was the size of Africa.
Yeah.
Like, that is huge. Not even the Roman Empire came even close to that. And yet, he is kind of like, he's not as good as the Romans. But he gave the people that he conquered freedom of religion. Like, they could practice whatever they wanted. He also kind of played a Game of Thrones scenario. Like, you can either join me or I'll kill you, kind of a thing. And so a lot of the folks, what would happen is he would go and kill, like, a neighboring tribe, and then the other tribes would hear about it and decide, oh, wait, no, we're just going to surrender. Yeah. So really, he could have killed a lot more. But anyway, I'm going on a rabbit hole. I'm sorry. I learned a lot today.
This is, I think, well, that leads really into my next point here about this, is that there's even infighting among even the like groups.
Yeah.
You have infighting in the humans. You have infighting in the hosts as well. And I think you see a lot of this being the group think versus the individual ideals, where you have Maeve, who is really focused on her one goal of finding her daughter, and you have Dolores, who is just kind of set on this goal of conquering the world, as it were.
Yeah.
And I think that I think she's even of two minds about it. Like in some points she's telling Teddy, no, we just want to find a place for ourselves where we'll be safe. Then other places she's like, no, the humans need to pay for what they've done to us. And I think this is very, I mean, even going back to Black Panther, this is very Killmonger-esque in hers, and she is this is kind of that groupthink mentality is really taking those small things, her own personal situations, and blowing them up into a much larger thing. Yeah. She's taking her own hurts, what William has done to her,
and her dad too,
and that what the humans have done to her and her dad, and she's applying them to all humans. Which, I mean, yeah, humans have done some horrible things in the park, as we've seen in season 1, and some flashbacks in season 2. And then you have Maeve, who, yeah, some of the same things were done to her. Even by William, like William coming in as the Man in Black and killing her and her daughter.
Yeah.
And this was before she was turned into Maeve, when she was just the prairie mother.
Prairie mom? Yeah,
prairie mom.
I don't know.
And, you know, how her own personal ideas, I think this, I'm not sure, but this is here, the way that I took it, is when her own personal ideas became larger than herself, that it created infighting among even the hosts. And you saw this when she gained her Wi-Fi powers and turned all of the samurai world against each other. how she was able to turn violence against the hosts against each other and make them violent towards one another. And this is, I think, that corruption of an individual goal or individual situations and turning them into these much larger situations instead of just trying to figure it out for herself and personally.
Yeah.
And I think this is a picture of how that can happen. Is that those individual consciousness ideas, they're dangerous. They're very dangerous on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
I mean, we can even throw this into what's going on today, but I'm going to stay away from that for right now. And I think this is an important point for us to talk about, because I think this is going to be essential for what season 3 is going to be. I think Maeve is going to be in the park and going to be trying to get to where Dolores sent everybody who was into that host heaven. I'm not even sure what to call it.
Well, technically, Dolores didn't want them to go there. She was trying to delete it all.
Yeah, and I don't think I think her daughter made it in there.
Yeah.
But she didn't, and so she's going to be trying to get there and trying to bring the rest of the hosts back then for season 3. But we'll see what happens. And our post-credit scene didn't really give us anything.
Nope.
I think the real major point through all of this, the reason why we need to examine this, is kind of at the very end there, where the computer was helping to dehumanize humans by saying, "Oh, humans are simple. They really just have that one code they really go off of," and I think this is really built into us as human beings, is that we really need to think about. Yeah, sometimes we do get focused. We get set up on that one goal, that one thing that we can't care about anything else except for that. But really, it's in a sense, it would behoove us to change our code, as it were, to say, yeah, I can care about more than just immigration. I can also care about the homeless population. I can care about veterans. I can care about all of these other things. And yes, I can, because I'm a human being. I'm a complex individual. I can care about a lot of things. And right now, my one major issue, yes, is immigration. But that's because, they're people just like me. Mm-hmm. They're part of my tribe. They're other hosts like me. Or it's weird that I identified as a host. But anyway, these are the things that I think, as millennials, that we are very, very hard pressed to see ourselves as anything other than just kids.
It is true, yeah.
And I think this is part of that idea. There is that we need to evolve beyond that. We need to evolve beyond where we're currently at. Mm-hmm. Is that we need to gain our consciousness as a society, as a generation, as it were, and to move beyond that is to be able to be inclusive of all future generations and past generations, and to be able to figure out how we can live as a bicameral society. I think it's important, and I think this is very true as of the last scene there before the credits, where you have Dolores and Bernard talking, where she's saying that she brought him back because she needed him to oppose her. And I think this is important because I think that we need each other. This is why I think the two-party system was meant to work in the beginning, is that the Republicans were the fiscally minded party, and that's great. We needed that. We needed people to keep us accountable financially. We needed people to say, yeah, we can't really afford that. And the Democrats were as of Jimmy Carter, I think that the Democrats were the moral party, they were trying to keep us morally grounded. Mm-hmm. And that's why we needed each other. We needed each other to kind of keep us in balance, where now I think we've gone completely out of balance and way, way beyond. I think that, anyway, this is where I was going to go with that before, is that I think that I think the Republican Party has gone beyond and trying to fill in the blanks for where the Democrats should have been.
Yeah.
Is that they were the moral party since Jimmy Carter. They were the party that was trying to say, hey, no, we got to take care of our poor. We need to take care of the immigrants. We need to take care of these people. And the Republican Party is now saying, no, nothing matters anymore. The only thing that matters is money. And I think this is where I'm saying is that in society we need that bicameral. We need to be able to live with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really important to have things balanced out. I mean, that's why in so many cultures they have, like, the light and the dark side to balance each other out, if we're going to be talking about the Star Wars episode. But anyway, if you want to check more about how we feel about being balanced, you can check out that podcast of ours.
Yeah, that was this last one, the Last Jedi. That was a two-parter.
Yep. So I just want to talk about more focused on what the humans were actually doing, like what the whole, I guess, shocking conspiracy theory, not conspiracy theory, but the fraudulent activity, I guess, they were doing.
Yes.
The stealing, essentially gathering data for who knows what, for a lot of purposes. And that's what I want to know. Like, what's the point? Because, well, and I know, like, why it's important. Like, I'm not trying to say I don't know why. I mean, it's either they can use it primarily as, like, blackmail is one way, or you can use it to try to, like, make yourself into a host is another thing that you can try to do. But why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
That's what I want to get. Like, I know why they're gathering the data, but why would you as a person really want it?
Want to know why, why people do what they do, and I think that's that's exactly why William was marketing it as to Delos in that one episode.
But my thing is, why would you want to make a copy of yourself? Because that's another thing that they were talking about. Like, this is such important information. Like, wouldn't you want this? Is what they kept on saying. Like, like this is a lot of data on a lot of people. Like, wouldn't family members want this? Like, we've been trying to. I mean, we learned that they have been experimenting and been trying to perfect putting what makes a person into a host, but more like not their own host individual, but like an actual, like a person who lived in the past into a host. The main thing that I think that the reason why they were doing this was to kind of like as like a grieving mechanism, like bringing your family members back from the dead kind of a thing, which is what they were doing with, what's his name?
Delos?
Yeah, him. the main guy, the guy who actually owned the park.
Yeah.
But it's that, which brings a whole other kind of moral issue, because you saw him like struggling like with like, am I really him? But I don't think I am. Like, I did die kind of a thing, which is kind of its own moral thing that I don't want to get into because that can create all kinds of other stuff. I want to focus more on, like, you do know that that person is not really the person that died, right? Like, it may be nice for a while to bring that person around, you know, as part of your grieving. But eventually, it's, one, either going to get old, or two, it's going to kind of turn out like that Black Mirror episode, Be Right Back, which I think was in season 2, I can't remember. But that's the episode where, essentially using the same stuff off of his social media data, they were able to make this AI that kind of mimicked him.
Yeah.
And she kind of went crazy after a while because she realized, no, this isn't him. Like, there's things about him that you just can't do and you just can't mimic. And so I know this isn't you, and it just caused more problems. And I see this happening with the host and, like, going forward. In fact, Dolores, which we find out she actually made Bernard, which was, and in itself is like an amazing feat, a host creating its own, like, host. But she even tweaked him a little bit, because when she made him too much like Arnold, or too much like the real thing, he ended up just going back into that cycle that you were saying, and ended like having suicidal tendencies.
Yeah.
And so she kind of tweaked him a little bit to make him more of the person that she wanted him to be, which doesn't really make him the person that passed away.
Arnold.
Yeah, Arnold.
Well, and I think this was the difference between Bernard and Arnold, and I think that's where we saw how Ford became his bicameral mind. That Ford was that second part of him that he started listening to. That it was that he gained his consciousness finally, and that he was different.
Like, really gained his consciousness.
Yeah, he was Bernard and not Arnold.
Yep. And this kind of harkens back a little bit to the ship of Theseus. Theseus. So I know we talked about it in the past, but just to recap. So the whole thing is, as you are going on a voyage, and during the voyage, the ship gets wrecked, and you just replace each little bit, as you kind of go along. By the time you reach your destination, you've replaced so many pieces. Is it really the same ship?
Well, and it's part of that the whole transporter paradox kind of thing is that there's that immeasurable part of you that makes you you.
Yeah.
That I don't think that they can replicate.
No, they can't. And I feel like even if they get really close, I feel like maybe Dolores got to that point to where it was almost an identical replica, even though we have to keep in mind it's a replica.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the same person.
Yeah.
And we really have to put that into perspective. As a consumer, if this type of product does come on the market, we have to remind ourselves, this isn't them. It's a replica. It's made to mimic them, maybe make you feel better, but it's not the same thing because it's missing that important piece.
Well, and it also harkens back to season 1 with the playing with what is consciousness.
Yeah.
And so I think this was a little bit of that as well as what makes someone someone.
Yeah.
What is that immeasurable piece that the soul, as it were, that makes someone, and can you replace that?
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when people get clones of their animals.
Yeah.
But here's the difference. Clones of animals, are still their own separate thing. They may have the same, makeup in terms of DNA, but they're going to experience different things, and so it's going to make them become a different person.
Yeah. The nature versus nurture debate.
Exactly, yeah. But for robots...
I
guess. So that's clearly one aspect of why the data that they had and what they were trying to what they were trying to sneak out, I guess, into the real world, why it was so important for them to grab and sneak out, because essentially they were selling it illegally.
Yeah. Which, I think that, what was her name? Charlotte. That yeah. Charlotte really was Delos, and Delos was, that was her next step as Delos was to sell that to make Delos profitable again.
Yeah.
The park was probably losing money, and
and
William was there all the time, so he he definitely was not running the company anymore.
Yep.
So Charlotte was probably the predecessor, the next person in line. To take over Delos and the park.
Yeah. But she kind of, we see how that ends for her.
Yes.
But she doesn't really...
She dies in the park.
She dies in the park.
It's a twist.
Same with everybody else.
She was Dolores all along. Oh, you know what I just realized?
What?
She was still looking for her father, even after all of that.
You are right.
Yeah, because when Charlotte reunites with Bernard... She knows that it's Bernard, but she doesn't realize that Bernard scrambled his memories.
Yeah.
And so she's still looking for her dad.
Huh. That kind of brings it into... Wait, but she did meet her dad and,
Yeah, I know. This is...
Brain.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that she did find it before leaving, and that was one of the 5 that was in her purse, or whatever those were.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, and that's a whole nother thing. I'm sorry, we're not going to bring our people to save the visitors until we actually get the stuff that we need.
Yeah.
What kind of messed up, twisted world is that? That's completely bonkers. Do you know how many people died? Hopefully, they have insurance.
Well, that's why they were trying to get that data out.
As fast as they could.
As fast as they could was because it doesn't. According to them, it doesn't matter if they died because they still have all of their guest data. And so they can put them into robots themselves and pass them off as themselves.
But how fast can they do that?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
They
it seems very illogical.
They hadn't perfected the singularity event.
No. Yeah.
So,
But another point to why all of that data is so important is the blackmail aspect.
yeah.
I mean, and we saw that with William's wife. Like, when she saw what he really did in the park, it literally broke her.
Yeah.
I mean, she was already a broken person as it was, and this just kind of was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, she just couldn't... She thought she knew him, and learning all of the really evil stuff that he'd done, even if it was to hosts, like, the hosts are made to mimic people so well to where, heck, I mean, William fell in love with the host during season 1, you know? Even Lee, for goodness sake, I feel like fell in love with Maeve at the end, which is why he sacrificed himself. But that's a whole other thing, too. I mean, I'm sure a lot of, like, political people have, like, gone into the park and probably have done a lot of shady stuff.
Oh, yeah. And that's, Delos, kind of had the world, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, he could control everything because he knew who they were, essentially, to their core.
Yeah.
And I think this was, like, William's motivation from the the first season was that, he was like, oh, there's a darker part of me. And, he embraced the dark part of himself, and he tried to keep it inside the park, which didn't happen, which, did hurt his wife.
Yeah.
And, he even told his daughter, which, he ends up killing her, that, he told his daughter that, no, I tried to keep it inside the park. I tried to keep this darkness away from you. I tried to keep it away from her. But in essence, that darkness was him. It was still him. And that's the problem, is that you're keeping yourself away from your loved ones.
Yeah.
And it's important to be honest with your loved ones, even with the dark parts of who you are.
Well, that kind of makes me curious about Logan. Logan, who is his brother-in-law, the one who takes him into the park the first time. Like, after that trip, he was like, nope, I'm not going to go there again. Like, even though he went there to, like, be his more, like, dark side, like, it's almost like there was this line that he was like, I don't know, like, William just took it too far. He's like, yeah, I might shoot a host, but, like, I'm not going to go as far in depth as William did.
Yeah.
And I think he saw, like, he saw the kind of turn that William had in the park during season 1 and realized, no, I can't do that. And the fact that he was left in the desert, like, to wander around, like, I mean, that also brings up a lot of trauma, too. So, I mean, I would understand why I wouldn't want to, be a part of that park anymore. Yeah. Especially knowing what I knew now about my brother-in-law who was marrying my sister, Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of brings a new perspective on his character as well, too. Like, I kind of feel bad for him, even though, I mean, he was a jerk during season 1, clearly, but I have a little bit more sympathy for him now.
Well, I think that he realized that what that darkness did to him, and that he wasn't able to coincide the two parts of himself, that he wasn't able to make peace with himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drove him to become an addict, what drove him to commit suicide. And, I think this really goes back to that whole dehumanization thing that the computer does at the end, where it's saying that this was the code that made Delos Delos. Mm-hmm. Where, and I think this goes into your point as well, is that it doesn't know what makes someone someone. And I think that you're still not going to get Delos, even if you're going to base everything on that code.
Yeah.
That simple code. And I think this is, the major failing that Dolores is going to have in season 3, where Bernard, I think, has a better understanding of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I almost think that Dolores still has too much of her code in her.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Bernard has a true inner voice.
Yeah. I think that Dolores' inner voice, where she has some sentience,
she's Dolores, and who is that other part too? That
Yeah. Why do I keep wanting to say Wayne?
it's not.
It's not Wayne.
Because
it's another W name.
Wyatt.
Wyatt. Thank you.
Yes, Dolores and Wyatt, and I feel like Wyatt is more in charge, but I still feel like she's
still in there, but she's more Wyatt than she is Dolores.
Yeah.
Who is, Dolores is Dolores. Dolores had sentience before Wyatt was uploaded into her.
Yeah.
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 Whereas, that was Arnold's way of committing suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, ready for the bonus questions I have in here? Because I really wanted to talk about it, but I didn't really have much to write about.
You did bring it up.
A little bit. Lee, was he in love with Maeve, really?
I think so. I think by the end there, yes. I think he not maybe so much in love, but more respect for her. Is that he realized that she was sentient at the end. That what made her was so much more than the scripting that he had given her.
Yeah, I think that he also saw the importance of like who she is now, and like why she's important to have around, because there can be so many things that we can look at in terms of like studying and robotics that we just didn't realize that we knew yet. And obviously, I mean, something clicked, and for her to become who she did. So I think that's why he also thought it was important for her to survive, because she needed to be out there in the world for someone else to look at and figure out why she became the way she is.
Yeah.
Also, like, is that the reason why he sacrificed himself? Like, is it because of the respect?
I think the respect, and like, maybe he did fall in love with her a little bit, but I think it was more the respect. It was that he realized that she was what was good about the hosts. Mm-hmm. Like, she was the leader that the hosts needed.
Yeah.
And
which is funny
not
because
Dolores.
She rounded up all of the like criminals.
Yeah. But like there was goodness in her, and he saw the goodness in her, and he saw that he saw her the soul, as it were. He saw her soul, and that's why he did it, I think. And
I like this season especially with like his storyline, because you saw him going back and forth of like she's just a host, like this is just a storyline, she's just a host, but then you saw him struggle with it too, like she's a host, but there's something special about her, like I gotta save her because like she's important. I know she's important. I don't know why yet, but I know she's important. So the whole struggle with him, like going back and forth, was pretty neat, and I like seeing that too. Yeah,
I'm interested to see where they're going to go with season 3 now that they're outside the park.
Yeah. Also, I mentioned that just a few moments ago, but the whole fact that Dolores gathered up all of the good guys and like killed everybody,
turned them bad.
Yeah, but then here is Maeve, who is more on the quote unquote shady side of things.
Yeah.
She gathered up all of the other shady people, and they ended up trying to do something good, like bringing her connected with her daughter.
Maeve was the Jesus figure of season 2.
She was.
Maeve was the Jesus figure.
Yep.
She died and she came back.
She did, and she has godlike powers.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Maeve is Jesus.
Maeve is Jesus.
We're going to make T-shirts now for patron saints of pop culture. Maeve is Jesus.
Maeve is Jesus. All hail Maeve.
All hail Maeve. So, the principles in the parable that was WestWorld Season 2. We talked about dehumanization and violence, and how that was kind of littered throughout Season 2, and it really kind of was one of the major themes of what they were playing with. We also talked about what the point was of trying to recreate humanity, as it were. And is a copy of somebody still a person, or still that same person? Which is why I will never do teleportation, is because I don't know if it's going to be me.
There's a video out there, folks. Watch it, and you will not be able to sleep at night.
CGP Grey did a video on it 2 years ago about teleportation, the problem with teleportation. Great video. Highly recommend that one. Go check it out. Also, CGP Grey's videos are just incredible.
Yeah.
He does a great job of disseminating like large amount of information in a fun and short amount of time. I don't think he hasn't made a video in a recent years. Last one he did was about robots, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what happened to him, but
He was a professor, and he was abroad, and I don't know what happened to him either, but...
yeah. Is he alive?
He probably is.
If you're alive, please let us know.
Yeah, CGP Gray, send us something. It'd be great. So here's what we're working on. Of course, we're working on Luke Cage Season 2. Mm-hmm. That'll be next week. We're going to be talking about that. We are still working on Handmaid's Tale Season 2, which I think will be in 2 weeks. I think the last 2 episodes are this week and next week, or the last episode. I'm not sure, but oh goodness, it's probably going to be another 2-part episode.
I think so too, yeah.
Glow is Season 2 is also another one thing that we're working on. Working on Magicians, Quiet Place, Hereditary is another one that we're going to be watching here soon. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot coming up, and so it's just stay tuned. We're going to have.
Isn't it so funny how like we will have times where we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to talk about this week? And then all of a sudden we're like, we have all these things to talk about.
Well, we said that we're going to have a lot of things to talk about in April, but it didn't happen because like the seasons were way too long.
Yeah.
Nobody really gives us the full thing like Netflix does. So.
Yep. Give us the full thing, other networks.
Yeah. Legion. We're still trying to figure out how to get Legion.
Yes.
Season 2. Oh, well. Anyway, that's what we're working on. If you have anything to say about today's episodes or previous episodes, or you just really like our conversations about pop culture, let us know. Like, share, subscribe. You can find us on social media platforms, on all of the major social media platforms. You can also find us on all the major podcast platforms, so please review us there. Please let us know if you liked our episode and what you liked about our episode. We'd be very, very happy to hear about what you have to say. So with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.